Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They say, that's amazing. How did you do that?
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. All right, so I apologize for everybody on the live stream for being a bit late. I had to call first the Department of Treasury and as well as my bank. It is the ongoing saga of a mistake that I made. So look, I'm not going to get into too many details, but mistakes were made. I overpaid the IRS massively, and I'm broke. As a result, waiting for them to return the money. So, disaster. That's what happens. This is it. I swear to God, this is enough to make me turn into an anti-tax crusader. No, look, I know it's just none of this would happen. I swear, if the Republicans had not attempted, had not defunded the IRS. And so, like, that's the thing. Their systems are so terrible and slow and antiquated that they can hardly get anything done. It's a they're a disaster. It's like, again, I talked about problems with the tax system in this country, how they don't pre-populate the forms like they do, or like they do in other countries, and of course their systems are so ungodly slow and outdated. And no wonder, again, people are frustrated with our tax system, with just the infrastructure of it, and that's of course on purpose. The Republican Party and the corporate Democrats have aided in gutting the IRS to make it as slow and annoying and non-functional as they can, so that they can look at it and say, look at that IRS, don't you hate the IRS? We should get rid of it, so that rich people don't have to pay taxes. That's what they're doing, and I am so ungodly frustrated at what's going on, because again, what happens when you overpay? You're screwed for quite some time, weeks, for them to even process your return. So yeah, I am having a very, very difficult time financially as a result of this, of a mistake. So yeah, it's pretty horrible. All right. Anyway, enough about my shitty problems. Let's go to the country's shitty problems, because there are plenty of them. But first, before I do that, I just want to note that today is, National Lupus Day. So, look, May 10th, it's Lupus Awareness Day, to make sure that, everybody knows that, about people that are suffering from lupus. I know it's not something that is huge or widely celebrated, because, look, I mean, let me just read some facts here from the Lupus Foundation of America. Lupus is one of the cruelest, most mysterious diseases on Earth, an unpredictable and misunderstood autoimmune disease that ravages different parts of the body. Research shows lupus is more pervasive and more severe than people think, and has an impact the public does not realize. And of course, they go on to talk about how it's important to raise awareness of lupus and to show support for those who suffer. I happen to know somebody who suffers from it personally, and so she's the one who brought up the idea of basically raising awareness. And so what I have done, I don't have any purple to wear, but what I do have is the ability to set my background to be purple. And so I'm doing that for Lupus Awareness Day. And let me give you some facts here about it. Lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease. No two cases happen to be alike. Common symptoms include joint pain, skin rash, fatigue, and fevers that last for days. It can impact any organ or tissue, from the skin to the joints, the heart, to the kidneys. Two leading causes of serious illness and death from lupus are kidney and heart disease. Lupus develops usually between the ages of 15 and 44, and it lasts forever. There's no known cure. It can strike anybody between those ages, of course. 90%, and this is an amazing fact, 90% of the people living with lupus are women. That's amazing. I mean, that is something that impacts women more than anybody else. And while people with all races and ethnicities can develop it, usually occurs more than 2 to 3 times more frequently among African Americans, Asians, Hispanic, Latino, Pacific Islanders, and Native Americans than among Caucasians. So this is something that that happens to have an impact in the minority community. It's another thing that I didn't know. While the causes are unknown, scientists believe that hormones, genetics, and environmental factors are involved, but there's not enough research on it. And so I think that's really important. It can be very expensive to live with and treat, especially here in the United States, where we have insane medical costs. The average direct and indirect costs incurred by a person with lupus can exceed up $21,000 annually. Look, if you're making minimum wage in this country, you cannot afford just to treat lupus. And by the way, if you're making $15 an hour, that's $30,000 a year. Lupus, just being able to deal with it in costs, indirect costs, medication, and other things, $21,000. Jesus. And by the way, let's see, lupus can be difficult to diagnose. That's why, of course, I see some of the people who are talking about how, and look, I used to watch House as well, so I know, like, every time they would bring up, what was one of the things that they would bring up for the diagnosis? Lupus, all the time. But it can be difficult to diagnose. There's no single blood test, and its symptoms mimic those of other diseases. Again, going back to the Dr. House thing, they can vary in intensity and come and go over time. More than half of those afflicted suffer at least 4 years and saw 3 or more doctors before obtaining a correct diagnosis. And by the way, if you're able to get diagnosis earlier the better, of course, in preventing the long-term consequences of those disease. and of that disease. And so, look, I've learned a few things about it today, and I think it's important to share that information because, again, it is not well known, even though people might have heard of it, and it's very misunderstood. And so that's why it's really important to be able to raise awareness of it. So to those of you dealing with lupus, it's the day to raise awareness. It's the day to raise awareness for this horrible disease that you have to deal with. All right. So that said, let's see. Ravaging Wolverine says there are quite a number of ways autoimmune issues can manifest. It's so hard to diagnose. And then, of course, the drugs are imperfect. That's true. And by the way, Pharma Bro, I believe one of the drugs that he had, the Daraprim, wasn't that something that is helped to treat lupus? I'm not entirely sure, actually. But yes, the more awareness on this condition and other conditions, the better, and the better that we can actually work to treat it and find a cure. If there is one, and I hope there is someday. All right, anyway. Let's dive in. We got a lot of stories and not a lot of time. So, again, it's just been one of those days. So let's do it. Let's go into some more recent developments on the SCOTUS. All right. As a result of these small, peaceful protests that have taken place outside of the homes of members of the Supreme Court, the 6 conservative justices, the Senate immediately rushed out a bill to fund more police, to expand their security to the immediate families of the Supreme Court justices. CNN reports that the Supreme Court Police Parity Act was approved by unanimous consent, where it will likely pass the House of Representatives and be signed by President Joe Biden. The push in Congress comes 1 week after Politico's bombshell leaked draft of the opinion, which of course indicates that the highest court in the land is about to overturn Roe v. Wade in the summer, as early as July. As early as June. So they go and they pass this, and that is literally the fastest I have ever seen Congress work on a bill. Hey, it turns out they can do something. Wow. And now, of course, the asterisk on that one, right, is that, of course, it's got to be something that benefits the already powerful, who happen to be, at this point, stripping away rights of millions of people in this country. Maybe if, I don't know, the Senate had passed something to protect bodily autonomy, in the first place, there wouldn't be these massive protests. Now, Senators John Cornyn, a Republican from Texas, and Chris Coons, a Democrat from Delaware, introduced this bipartisan bill. Here's what Cornyn said about it. The events of the past week have intensified the focus on Supreme Court justices' families, who are unfortunately facing threats to their safety in today's increasingly polarized political climate. Who polarized it? Who polarized this climate? You know, by overturning 50 years of precedent on women's reproductive rights. I don't know who polarized the country. I don't quite understand. Where's this coming from? Says John Cornyn. Well, we got to do something. We got to protect not women. We got to protect the Supreme Court justices from peaceful protesters outside of their house. I'm sorry, but that's the priority of Congress right now. That's the priority of both Democrats and Republicans. And in fact, I'll continue with the statement here. We must act to ensure justices and their families are protected from those who wish to cause them harm, peaceful protests by extending Supreme Court police security to family members. This radical Supreme Court, it's far right, they're activist judges, and they are causing harm to millions of families, or going to. And by the way, the end of Roe does not mean the end of abortions. No, all it does is ban safe abortion. That's it. Abortions are still going to happen. And now, as a result, millions of women are going to die. Well, okay, look, millions, no. I'll backtrack on that one, all right? Thousands of women will die as a result of this. Thousands. Very likely. Back alley abortions. Women will die. Again, and look, they're not going to die just from coat hanger abortions and back alleys. No, there are women that will die from things like ectopic pregnancies. If you do not treat them, if you do not do this affirming care for women and get that pregnancy out. Ectopic pregnancies happen when the egg is in the fallopian tube or outside of where it's supposed to be, where it implants. It can cause bleeding and death. Missouri attempted to criminalize aborting an ectopic pregnancy, which is not viable at all. And of course, yes, as some of you mentioned, there will be suicides for women who decide, I cannot be a parent. And if you're going to force me to carry this baby, rape this baby, because many of these laws do not have exemptions for rape or incest, then I'm just not going to live. You are killing women. You are killing women. That's the result of this. And look, in the United States, about 1% to 2% of all pregnancies happen to be ectopic. If left untreated, they can be fatal. Ectopic pregnancy accounts for almost 3% of all pregnancy-related deaths. Under the bill, originally introduced by Representative Stice, terminating an ectopic pregnancy in the state of Missouri would have been a Class A felony, a conviction that carries penalty of up to 10 years to life in prison. So, under this law, which, by the way, would be allowed to proceed, once Roe is gone, these are the trigger laws. Women who decide to save their own lives by getting life-saving surgeries, abortions, would be sentenced to 10 years to life. Now, that was the old bill. That was stripped out. Why was it stripped out? Because enough people made a fuss. And yes, women and non-binary people and trans men too, of course, are included. Of course. I consider trans women to be women, so I lump them in with women. But yes, non-binary as well. Anybody with a uterus is a target. They're not pro-life. They're killing people. They want to kill people for aborting a clump of cells because they consider it to be life. In 2021, a Texas lawmaker filed a bill that would abolish and criminalize all abortion, leaving women and physicians who perform the procedure to face a death penalty. The bill had no exemptions for rape or incest. None. But we don't care about them. Regular people? No. No. When it comes to the elites, that's when we act. That's when Congress, that's when the Senate picks up and says, oh, got to do something. Reproductive rights under attack. I sleep. Protests in front of a Supreme Court justice's home? We must do something now. We have to act. We have to act. Here's Coons. Here's a Democrat saying if the families of Supreme Court justices have the same profile and exposure as the highest ranking officials in our government, they deserve the same level of protection. We must take threats that comes from extremes on both sides of the political spectrum against Supreme Court justices seriously. And that makes this bill an unfortunate necessity. I'm sorry, extremes on both sides. What extreme on both sides are we talking about? What extremes? I'm sorry, you have people that are peacefully protesting, holding a vigil outside of a Supreme Court justice's house. By the way, that protest in front of Kavanaugh's house started by his neighbor. So yeah, they're in on it. They hate what's going on, taking people's rights. But no. That person, according to Chris Coons, extremist. It's an extremist on that side. But yeah, I mean, there's extremists on both sides. Both sides are equal. The people that are fighting for reproductive rights and peacefully protesting and holding a vigil versus, I don't know, the people that are blowing up abortion clinics. Extremes. Both sides. They're the same. No, they're not. They're not the same. How dare you even equivocate those two sides? They're not equal. They're not even. Not even at all. But no, they think you're the extremist. They think you're the extremist, not the justices who are the extremists, who are recruited from the Federalist Society and doing the bidding of a very small minority of people. The vast majority of Americans want abortion to be safe and legal, do not want Roe overturned. I've given you the polling on it so many different times, so many different situations. Is there variability? Yes. So like, oh, well, But by the way, you know who came up with the whole trimester thing? It's not in science. No, that's Roe. Roe codified the entire thing. Well, not codified, but it set up the trimesters as a way to delineate who has power at what time. Whether or not the state can come in and regulate these abortions. They're against the people. They're against regular people. And by the way, they're also against you protesting the removal of your own rights. There is an 8-foot tall, non-scalable fence that was installed around the Supreme Court. They put that out last week. If you can't protest in front of the court building, and you can't protest in the street in front of your homes, or in front of their homes, where can you protest? Where are you allowed to protest? Nowhere. That's it. And that's the point. They want you to sit down and shut up. They don't want you to use your First Amendment rights. I'm talking about peaceful protest. I'm talking about holding a vigil. I'm talking about chanting in signs on public roadways. That's what I'm talking about. That's protest. And even that little bit, that's too much. Now they have to be met with an army of police. Republicans don't care about your First Amendment rights and your right to privacy, and apparently neither did the Democrats. By the way, and I say the Democrats because guess what they're doing? Instead of actually doing something about it, right? And I guess there's not much they can do now, but they had a chance. I mean, yes, they could go after Joe Manchin, could go after Kyrsten Sinema. Joe Manchin's got a lot of ethical issues going on here. A lot of corruption stuff going on. You know, his daughter, Heather Bresch, colluding with Pfizer to keep EpiPen prices really high. I wonder if you could use that as leverage to get Joe Manchin to overturn the filibuster, or at least make a carve out for this particular piece of legislation to protect women's rights. But he doesn't do that because they don't care, because they're raising money off this. Millions of dollars wasted going to the Democratic Party. Who's going to do anything to fight for you? They're not doing anything right now. They're putting up show votes, which are going to get shut down. What a joke. Absolute joke. And again, the same Democrats, Nancy Pelosi is out there, along with Steny Hoyer, Jim Clyburn, They're right now, well, not right now, but they were earlier this week, last week, stumping for anti-abortion, anti-choice Democrat Henry Cuellar in Texas. That's what they're doing right now with your money. But the Democrats tell you, just vote harder. I mean, that doesn't mean we're going to do anything, but just vote harder. It's a slap in the face to anybody who was impacted by this. Every single person with a uterus who was impacted by this. And they're shoveling more money to police to protect the elites, the unelected elites on the Supreme Court. It is absolutely disgusting what they're doing. Shame on them. Shame on all of them. But hey, you know what? That doesn't even matter because guess what? They don't have any shame. Disgusting. All right, let's go to someone else who's disgusting. Suzanne Collins. Senator Suzanne Collins just went full Karen after she discovered a message written in chalk on the public sidewalk outside of her house. Oh no. Oh God, no. Bangor police responded to a call from West Broadway at 9:20 p.m. Saturday to investigate a message written on chalk on the sidewalk. This is according to Bangor police spokesperson Wade Betters. The message, according to police, I'm going to show you the message. Very, very, very scary stuff that happened in front of Suzanne Collins' house. Oh my God. For those of you who find that difficult to read, it says, Susie, please. Mainers want WHPA. Vote yes. Clean up your mess. WHPA refers to the Women's Health Protection Act, which would codify the right to an abortion in the law and ban restrictions on abortion access. Oh no. Oh no. How incredibly threatening this message is. I must call the police. How dare they write this in sidewalk chalk? Give me a break. Yeah, clearly terrorists. We need to come down with the full force of the law on these sidewalk chalk terrorists. No, even the cops were like, this is a quote here from Wade Betters. The message was not overtly threatening. Yeah, it wasn't threatening at all. It was very polite. That's what it was. Susie, please. Protect women's rights. But no, she had to go full Karen and call the cops. And by the way, here's what Collins said in a statement. We are grateful to the Bangor police officers and the city public works employee who responded to the defacement of public property in front of our home. Defacement. That's nothing a hose can't fix. Okay? It's sidewalk chalk. I mean, come on. Really? Really? How? And by the way, for the message, how dare they ask something the great and powerful Suzanne Collins? No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. How dare you ask her to do something for you? What are you, a corporation? What, did you give her a check? No, if you didn't give her a check, then I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. Now, this follows the peaceful vigils being held outside of the house, the homes of the 6 conservative Supreme Court justices who are planning to gut reproductive rights for women, trans men, and non-binary individuals. Millions of people are going to be affected. And yes, it would lead to the criminalization of not only abortion in many different states, but certain contraception. It would also lead to the criminalization of miscarriages. You have a different variation, like You have different states that have set up different trigger laws. As soon as Roe is officially overturned, which it's not yet, but it will be, then these states' trigger laws kick into play. And again, they're all different to varying different degrees, some more draconian than others, but 26 different states have these trigger laws in place. Over half the country, where you'll have significant restrictions on abortion. But no, the real extremists here, apparently, are the peaceful protesters. That's, yep, the real extremists. I mean, look, any time that that people challenge power, or even the comfort of a politician, that's when the media, the politicians, the blue check liberals on Twitter join up with conservatives to go, how dare you? You're being so uncivil right now. Don't go to their house. Hold on. They're taking your civil rights away. And yet, you're going to talk about civility? You can talk about civility. No, it's past time to be civil. And now they're passing laws, by the way, Congresses, to protect themselves and insulate themselves from this real righteous anger. The Senate unanimously passed a bill to fund more police for the SCOTUS members and their families. Think about that. Left-wing pro-choice protesters, they peacefully gather, they do a vigil, and what happens? Immediate ramping up of police presence. They also did the same thing in the largely peaceful George Floyd protest. 93% peaceful. Right-wingers never tell you that, by the way. When they talk about, oh, it's the riots, the George Floyd riots, oh, what about the riots? 93% peaceful. Millions and millions of people all over the country protesting peacefully. And they focus on the very few times where there was violence, where there were actual riots, while ignoring the January 6th Capitol riots. And by the way, right-wingers, they constantly talk about insurrection. They talk about violence. They talk about taking out the Democrat. Again, talking about killing Nancy Pelosi. They have said that. They have talked about killing Gretchen Whitmer, Michigan, the governor. They have talked about hanging Mike Pence, the vice president, or former vice president of the United States under Trump. So they talk about that. And what happened? January 6th. That happened, and guess what? They didn't think that any violence was going to happen at all. Oh, no. Oh, no. What do you mean? The right-wingers do violence. Even though we have extensive records of right-wingers doing violence, we're not going to prepare for right-wingers doing violence. But when a left-winger protests a pipeline, oh, no, that affects Capitol. We have to come down full force, especially if they're indigenous people, very, very dangerous indigenous people protecting their water rights. Weird. Why is it that people in power only seem to consider the left wing to be dangerous when it happens to be proven over and over again that it's the far right that's the danger? Why is it the media always takes the side of protecting the powerful against the rest of us, against regular people? The Washington Post editorial board, earlier this morning, they put this tweet out. They said the picket a judge's home is problematic. Oh, it's problematic, everybody. It tries to bring direct public pressure to bear on a decision-making process that must be controlled, evidence-based, and rational if there is to be any hope of an independent judiciary. There is no independent judiciary. There hasn't been an independent judiciary for a very long time. How long? Ever since the court said that money is speech and corporations are people. It's a joke. The Supreme Court is a joke. It has been for a very long time. This decision is not rational at all. It upends 50 years of established precedent on reproductive rights, on privacy. And this, again, you know what the worst thing is? Congress could have done something about it, but they chose not to. They chose not to. Suzanne Collins had voted against advancing the Women's Health Protection Act to the Senate floor for debate. She also supported the confirmations of Supreme Court Justices Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch after they lied to everybody about their commitment to honoring precedent. And she does not commit to overturning the Senate filibuster to even have a carve out to codify Roe v. Wade in federal law. I think it is very, very clear that we are not going to get any help from Congress. And I need you to understand, Congress is not on our side. Democratic politicians are not on your side. They're using this to fundraise, but will never do a goddamn thing to help you retain your rights, your right to privacy, because it's just not a priority to them. No, their priority is the donors. It's all about making money. They're not affected by this. No, Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic establishment, Jim Clyburn, Steny Hoyer, that's why they're out there pushing anti-choice candidates like Henry Cuellar in Texas over pro-choice progressives like Jessica Cisneros. They do not give a damn about you. And by the way, criticism extends to progressives as well. Bernie Sanders, you're in the Senate. What are you doing? What are you doing? Just sending this out the door. Unanimous consent. Bernie Sanders consented. Why did you vote for this? Very, very disappointing, Bernie Sanders. They did not need more police. But look, none of these people are going to be affected by this decision. So, of course, they're going to do nothing. But when people show up to protest for their rights, using their First Amendment rights, which are extensive peaceful protest, to make their voice heard, to demand a redress of their grievances, well, that makes the elites uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. And so they're showing us exactly what they prioritize. F. Suzanne Collins, F. Lisa Murkowski, and all the rest of the so-called alleged pro-choicers in Congress who won't do a goddamn thing to protect bodily autonomy. No, we see you. We see exactly who you are. You're a bunch of Karens. All right. Oh, more. More. I'm a little mad today. In the face of a more and more extreme Republican Party, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is reiterating her call, her mantra, that no, all we really need is just a strong Republican Party. Here she is.
I mean, the fossil fuel industry, they weigh in so significantly. I mean, how could it be that nobody on the Senate side cares, and the Senate cares about climate? Some of them do, and they talk about it. When it comes to the votes, it just isn't there. They just aren't there. So rather than saying, well, we have to defeat them, no, let's just try to persuade them. I want the Republican Party to take back the party. Take it back to where you were, where you cared about a woman's right to choose, and you cared about the environment, and all. Hey, here I am, Nancy Pelosi, saying this country needs a strong Republican Party, and we do, not a cult.
What an absolute embarrassment. Nancy Pelosi is embarrassing. What a joke. Establishment Democrats, is that your leader? Is that your leader? Somebody who prefers a strong Republican Party? Is that the focus of the Democrats now? Yeah, we don't want to defeat them. No, we want to help make them stronger. We want a strong Republican Party. And by the way, earlier in that video, she said the fossil fuel industry, they weigh in so significantly. I mean, how could it be that nobody in the Senate cares about climate? You just pointed out the problem of corruption. The fossil fuel industry is weighing in significantly with money. Yes, they have bought congressmen. They have bought Republicans. They have bought Democrats. That's why they do the bidding of their donors. You should know this, Nancy Pelosi, because you do the bidding of the donors most of all. My God. But no, I look, I can see some of you already saying, look, Jeff, you don't understand her argument. She just wants the Republican Party to take it, to go back to what it used to be. You know, back before when they were reasonable. You know, those reasonable Republicans. When was that? When were the Republicans ever reasonable? I've never seen a Republican Party that was reasonable, not in my lifetime. And reading up in the history, seems like they've always seemed to be trying to take away people's civil rights. You know, it's the same Republican Party that's been anti-gay for a very long time and have been fighting against Roe from the moment the Supreme Court at that time. Yes, even the conservatives in the Supreme Court that approved it, right? There were still right-wingers, Republicans that were fighting against this and trying to overturn it, and it took 50 years for them to do, but they finally got it. Now, I know Nancy Pelosi is ancient, but even back then, they never cared about the climate. Never cared. Never cared about women's bodily autonomy. Never cared about any of that. And I know some of you might point out, well, Jeff, you don't understand. How is it that Nixon then created the EPA? Nixon's a Republican. And he yet created the Environmental Protection Agency. You know why? You had environmental groups that put massive amounts of pressure on Congress to actually do something. You had the left. You had a strong left. That's what a strong left wing got you. Strong left wing got you unions, workers' rights, and the EPA. What has the strong right wing gotten you? Nothing. Tax cuts for the rich. That's what it got you. We had a strong left in this country that actually used to fight and win on issues. They were the lions. The right wing was legitimately afraid of them. What happened to them? What happened to the left? The money. The money. Look, it goes back to Nixon, by the way, and the Supreme Court. Back in 1971, Lewis Powell Jr., he wrote a memo that became the blueprint for conservative corporate rule. And it called for a complete takeover of society at every single level to benefit corporations. Nixon, he saw that memo and he said, oh, good, you want to legalize corruption? Here, I'm going to nominate you to the Supreme Court. And guess what? In 1978, Powell wrote the majority opinion in a little known Supreme Court decision in First National Bank versus Bellotti. First National Bank of Boston versus Bellotti. That overturned a Massachusetts law restricting corporate contributions to referendum campaigns not directly related to their business. He overturned that. That decision directly led to Citizens United. Powell also joined the majority on Buckley-Vallejo, which struck down limits in independent expenditures by outside groups. Powell and the court, at that time, opened the floodgates to massive amounts of money in politics, and with it came the corruption. And then Ronald Reagan gets into office, and he broke the back of the unions. He gave massive tax cuts to the rich. They used that money to buy politicians, thanks to Powell and the corrupt court. And over the last 40 years, that money didn't just go to Republicans, it went to Democrats too. You want to know why the left today is weak? It's the money. It's the money. Follow the money. There are very few on the Democratic side that take more money than Nancy Pelosi. More corporate money. Not a master legislator. No, she's just a fundraiser, and she's prolific at fundraising. That's why she wants a strong Republican Party, so that she can fundraise off them. And they can work together to further corporate rule and make more money for their donors. That's it. That's it. She wants, by the way, she's talking about climate change there. Oh, we want to do something about climate change. That's rich coming from somebody who had once called the Green New Deal the framework that would get us away from fossil fuels. She referred to that as the green dream or whatever. The green dream or whatever. She wants to talk about women's rights. You want to talk about codifying Roe? Why didn't the Democrats, when they had a supermajority in Congress, codify Roe? Supermajority. She was literally Speaker of the House during that time, between 2007 and 2009. She was Speaker during the Obama administration when they had a supermajority. This is from a 2009 article in the Washington Post. Take a look. Hold on. Right there. 2009 article from the Washington Post. But even as Mr. Obama had delighted abortion rights activists, he had dialed back some earlier ambitions. In 2007, he promised Planned Parenthood that the first thing I'd do as president would be to sign the Freedom of Choice Act, which effectively codifies Roe v. Wade. Now he says the bill is not my highest legislative priority, as he put it at a recent news conference. Huh. Interesting. It's just not my priority, you know? A codifying Roe v. Wade? I mean, why would I do that? Why would I actually honor a promise that I made in the campaign trail back in 2009? And by the way, do you know what his real priorities were? Bailing out the banks after the financial crisis and enacting the Republican Heritage Foundation healthcare plan that Mitt Romney used in Massachusetts. Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, right-wing plan. Weird. I guess maybe Nancy Pelosi figured that in order to make a strong Republican Party, that you have to have weak Democrats who refuse to fight. Because that's certainly what we have. Democrats lose over and over again to psychos, to people who are insane, monstrous people, terrible people. Why? How do they keep losing to these idiots? And you realize, oh, at least Republicans aren't lying about how monstrous they really are. No, they're out in the open about it. And that's enough. They get enough like-minded, monstrous people to vote for them, while the Democrats do absolutely nothing to support you. Democrats promise to work for you, and then they do nothing, absolutely nothing, when you hand them the levers of power. It's excuse after excuse after excuse. Oh, it's a parliamentarian. Oh, it's a filibuster. We can't do anything about that. Oh, it's process. Oh, you just need to vote harder. Vote harder in the next, the next midterm election. Just vote harder. By the way, we're going to use our massive amounts of resources to crush every single progressive who might actually have a shot at defeating Republicans, and then put up our mealy-mouthed, milquetoast, centrist, garbage candidates that are flooded with corporate cash and corruption, then lose to insane people. Because we would rather have insane right-wingers in Congress than a progressive. Because at least the insane right-winger takes the same donations that we do from the same people. But there's more, by the way. When asked about Joe Manchin, speaking of those terrible Democrats, Pelosi responded, Joe Manchin and I are Italian-American. We're Catholics. We have our friendship. I've helped him, even though I think clean coal is an oxymoron. And I've told the coal miners that I do believe in getting their benefits, whether it's pension or health care. And so we've worked on those issues together. And we have had our conversation. But right now, this conversation is a Senate conversation. But we're just optimistic and hopeful. About what? We're optimistic and hopeful that Joe Manchin would not. What? What are you hopeful about? What are you hopeful about? Joe Manchin owns a coal company. You ghoul. You clown. You're the worst Democratic Speaker of the House I've ever seen. Ineffectual. Disastrous. You think Joe Manchin is going to put his personal finances in jeopardy by supporting climate change legislation? Hell no. Hell no. He ain't never going to vote in favor of climate change legislation because, again, that would hurt his money. That would hurt his money. It's about the money. Just like how Nancy Pelosi doesn't support Medicare for all. Why? Because of the money. She gets massive donations from health insurance companies, hospital groups. And again, she talks about the right to choose, but then supports and endorses Henry Cuellar, an anti-choice conservative Democrat, who fired a woman, by the way, a staffer, when she was 28 weeks pregnant. No. She's corrupt, and she supports corruption. And everybody paying attention knows about this corruption. No, they know. In fact, look, there are some responses here. I'm going to read them. This is filmmaker Bree Newsom. She says, why does this country need a strong Republican Party? What even is the basis for that statement? Who is supposed to appeal to? I'm in my mid-30s, and attacking civil rights is all I've known Republicans to do. Because it's all they do. It's all they do. Lindsey Boylan, former Cuomo aide who accused the New York governor of sexual misconduct, said this: Speaker Pelosi, they never cared about those things. I know she isn't dumb enough to think this. She's just betting that many of us are dumb enough to buy it. True. Max Berger says, Republicans try to overthrow the government and leading Democrats keep talking about them like a friend they wish would text back more quickly. Kate Willett posted this: at least Democratic leadership is defending our right. Hold up, sorry. Getting word that they've decided to defend Republicans instead. Because of course they do. And finally, journalist David Roth said this: this is weird and embarrassing on the merits, just as useless abstracted nonsense from a very rich and very powerful octogenarian. But it's inexcusable given that the Democrats are technically in power right now. How is it that when Democrats are in power, it always feels like the Republicans are winning? Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird how that works out? They have all the levers of power, and yet Republicans still getting off all these wins. It's almost as if the Democrats don't know how to fight back or don't want to. I think we know what the real answer is. Okay. All right, let's dunk on a Republican. Try to have a little bit of fun for a second. Palate cleanser. Republican Representative Ronnie Jackson is pretty mad at Google. On Monday night, he posted an angry tweet thread against Gmail. What did Gmail do to Ronnie Jackson? Apparently, some of his campaign fundraising emails have ended up going in the spam folder. Uh-oh. Writing on Twitter, Jackson suggested that this was all part of a plot. Yeah, because it has to be a conspiracy to silence conservatives. Gmail, he writes, is actively suppressing emails from Republicans from hitting your inbox. Straight to spam! This is election interference. Big tech is out of control. How dare my fundraising spam emails with all cap and explanation points end up in the spam folder? It must be a conspiracy. It has to be. Obviously, there is somebody sitting at Google that is Gmail, that are going through and parsing every single email and saying, oh, you go there, oh, you go there, oh, you go there, oh, right in spam. Anything for Republicans, immediately to spam. No, that's not how it works, you moron. Idiot, dumbest person in America, or one of them. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Isn't it amazing, though, how conservatives are both winning the culture fights in this country through legislation, stopping Biden's agenda, while simultaneously not being in power and being the most oppressed people on the planet. No, big tech, I can't believe they're censoring me. Oh, Gmail. You know, some of the most widely viewed channels on YouTube and Facebook are conservatives. Didn't know that? I mean, they have almost media hegemony. Massive amount of views. Their message gets out everywhere. Every single where. Do you see it, a progressive message on cable news at all? At all? On MSNBC, do you see a real progressive message? Do you see people talking about Medicare for all in a positive way? No, of course not. What are you talking about? What is any of these conservatives say, big tech? What are you actually talking about? I mean, the things that are actually being, I guess, censored, if you want to call it that, are dangerous conspiracy theories that get taken down off YouTube. Accounts getting banned for promoting hatred and harassment against women and minorities. That's what's actually happening. And that's generally because you're breaking TOS from a private corporation. You are not oppressed. You are not being censored. If you stop sending such goddamn dumb, spammy ass emails, then they would stop getting flagged as spam. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. This is an algorithm, by the way, that is checking these emails, a computer automatically, right? That will check for certain signs of a spam email. Weird capitalization or capitalization in all the, in the title. Weird exclamation marks. Hey, maybe you could, stop doing that. And maybe send emails like a normal person, and you wouldn't get flagged. And you know what? What's interesting is, I think it's great that they're flagging these emails. I don't want no goddamn spam. I don't want to be spammed by Democratic fundraising. I have no interest in giving money to Democrats. No interest in giving money to the Republicans. No interest in giving money to just about any politician. Stop asking me for money. Stop. I'm tired of it. Giving money to any of these political parties is basically throwing it into a gigantic burn barrel. Except for, for the Democrats, that burn barrel has a rainbow painted on the side. It's the only difference between that and Republicans. It's ridiculous. They're not going to do anything with it. They're going to funnel it to anti-choice politicians like Henry Cuellar. Don't give any of these ghouls your money. There's one exception. If there's a progressive candidate that you like that is allows you to donate to them directly, do so. Unless and if not, I mean, again, don't waste your money unless it's one of those people. Don't give it to clowns like Ronnie Jackson. It's the same guy who allegedly sexually harassed a woman on a White House trip and would consistently explode at a staff. By the way, it's the same guy who gave Donald Trump, such great great health Donald Trump is in. Oh, yes, best health I've ever seen. Yes. Guy was drunk on the job, allegedly. And by the way, nearly all 60 witnesses interviewed by investigators in an Inspector General report that recently came out described Dr. Jackson as screaming, cursing behavior. His behavior is that. And his yelling, screeching, rage tantrums, and meltdowns when dealing with his subordinates. Well, that sounds about right. Because right now he is currently having a meltdown at Gmail. These people are absolute clowns. All right. Last story of the day. Texas elementary teacher was recently fired for allegedly shouting the N-word at a 6th grader. According to Fox 4 News, the substitute teacher was arguing with the student over whether the phrase, "oh my God," is offensive. Okay. Look, the details of the story are just amazing. One mother who didn't want to be identified by Fox 4 said her son had told her about this incident on Friday. She said the boy was not in the classroom, but relayed to her what what his friends who were there had witnessed, reported Macy Jenkins. Fox 4 spoke with the Swift Elementary School teacher off camera as well, who did not want her name used, so that's corroboration. She says she happened to be in the hallway Friday afternoon when she noticed a commotion in a nearby classroom. One of the kids in the class blurted out, "oh my God," to which he replied, "don't say that." When asked, "why can't we say 'oh my God'?" he said, "that's using Jesus' name in vain." So, wait, it's public school. It's not a church. I mean, I'm sorry, are you offended by the not swear word phrase? Oh my God? Oh my God. I'm sorry, are you offended right now? Are you super offended that I took the Lord's name in vain? Oh, but it got worse. It got worse. They then told Fox 4, that's when the substitute teacher told the children that this would be like me saying the N-word, except that he didn't say, oh, it would be like me saying the N-word. You know what I'm talking about. No. He said the actual N-word. The full word. The teacher who stepped in to intervene says that after hearing from the students, she approached the substitute who she says then added, "Yes, I said the slur, the N-word, and I'll say it again." Isn't that amazing? Somebody says, "Oh, yeah, I'm so offended when you say, 'oh my God.' I'm so offended by that I'm going to then say it's comparative to the N-word, the slur." Really? Oh, wow. Only an idiot thinks that those two things are the same. I mean, seriously. Wow. Not the same at all. Not the same at all. Now, the good news is, according to the report, Arlington ISD fired the substitute immediately. Hey, look, that's rare that happens in Texas. They move so quickly, but good. In fact, here's a district in a statement saying, quote, "The district does not condone the use of any offensive, derogatory, or inappropriate language in educational learning environments." All right, simple, short, sweet. Now here's the thing. Oh my God, is that offensive? Did I offend you? That's not a racial or ethnic slur. Doesn't even make fun of anybody's religion. So what? Why doesn't he like it? Because it's in their Bible. Oh yeah, you can't take the Lord's name in vain. Maybe you can, but I can. I don't believe in your Bible. I don't give a damn if you're offended. Are you a snowflake? Oh, do you just go so easily offended because I said, "oh my God"? These are the same people that cry about free speech. Oh, you're I can't believe you're stifling my free speech. My free speech. Free speech. But then the same people that want to take their rules in their little book, their little ancient book that I don't believe in, and impose it on the rest of us. I don't care if you're religious. I don't believe in it. I'll fight for your right to believe in it yourself. Practice it however you want, personally in your own home. But don't you dare use it to tell me what I can say. Okay? Don't. Or to tell a 6th grader that they're not allowed to say, oh my God, in a public school. And then to make the ridiculous comparison to the N-word? As if they're the same thing? No, these people, they pretend to be perpetual victims because they don't get to say anything that they want without consequences and don't get to control everyone around them like they want to. Because they want to. I'm not saying all religious people are like that, of course not. But we do have a problem with an American Taliban. And that American Taliban is taking reproductive rights away from women, non-binary and trans people. They're destroying education in this country. And they're telling us how to live our lives. They're trying to. And unaccepted. You get to live your life however you want. You don't want to get an abortion, you don't have to get one. You don't want to use birth control? You don't have to. That's your life. But your freedom of religion stops at my freedom from it. You don't get to tell me what to do. I'm glad that person got fired. Because odds are this is not the only time that this man flippantly threw around the N-word while trying to impose his religious rules on other people. Good riddance. Good riddance. All right. All right. Let's go through some of the super chats here. And thank you all. And I do want to thank you all. Let's see. Very, very kind today. Dango Bango says, Conor Lamb supporters are 100% uber racist. I'll have to look into that. VMan29397 says, the day we get a government that truly represents the will of the people is the day I will celebrate like my Jets winning the Super Bowl. I hope we see both. And yeah, I hope so too. All right. Dango Bango again saying, cis men will murder women under this law because of money. They don't want anyone to vote. Yep, that's true. Every law Republicans pass, everything they've criminalized, all of it is aimed at revoking your right to vote. Being poor is a crime. Now, being poor has always been a crime in this country. But that's a good point. There's no such thing as an extreme leftist. Gabby Mathis says, Arizona lawmakers want to outlaw condoms. Birth control. Contraception. I talked about that guy. One of my segments yesterday. Don't let the police scare you. Film them. You should absolutely film the police, yes. The Democratic Party has been hijacked by Republicans. Nancy Pelosi is a Republican. Dango Bango. Virginia Thomas, a.k.a. Ice Dragon, says, I had an ectopic pregnancy. When the pain hit me in December, I thought it was gas. In January, we had to call an ambulance. I didn't know. Glad they did. Yes. Very, very glad that they did as well. Yeah. RD Mayoro said, homeboy said your body is mine, you're having my baby, and then follow that up on a podcast. It's cracking. Yep, I heard about that. The guy in the FDNY shirt. That's what they want. That's what they want. They're honest. At least he's honest about it. Your body is mine. I have control over it. It's exactly what they want. Mega Super Enrique, thank you for the very kind $50. Wow. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much for the donations. Thank you so much for the super chats. All right, let's go here to Twitch. Let's see. Rora Sarabeth, thank you for gifting the tier 1 community sub. Appreciate that. Very, very kind. Very, very kind. All of you, thank you so much for your support. It's really, really important. Thank you. Thank you. Loopy the Lupus Awareness Dragon, sorry, says, thank you for popping your purple today for World Lupus Day. Even made your set purple. Way to go the extra mile. Hey, it's important. And thank you for bringing it to my attention. I appreciate that. All right, so bring it to my attention. I'll bring it to others' attention. That's what we do here. All right. Anyway, thank you all for going around the nation to meet today. Again, thank you for all the kind donations. Really, really appreciate it. Love you all. We're going to raid into, let's say, TYT that's going on. So we'll do that. And again, thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you all tomorrow.
I have not loved this conversation.
Oh no!
Please clap.
Bermucia, they say, pronounce it Bermucia. A real beautiful company. Caliban.
Sexual anarchy.
Clean coal, meaning to take it out cold, they're going to clean it.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.